Hi everyone, Tish here and welcome back to the John Banks Review channel. Back in 2018, Hyundai launched the Hyundai KONA, an extremely popular family car which has been competitive to other cars in the market. Originally, it was launched as both a petrol and a hybrid. And then, a year later in 2019, they launched the all-electric KONA based on the existing ICE platform. In 2020, the car received a facelift, which brought more dynamic styling and also more equipment. But customers said that though there was enough space and it was very competitive, there could always be more. And they also wanted an electric car which was based on an electric platform. So for 2023, we've got a brand new Hyundai KONA, which has been dedicated from the ground up as a fully electric car. The model that I'm going to be concentrating on is the hybrid and the petrols, with the electric following on in the next couple of months. In today's video, I'm going to tell you all the things that have changed between the existing and the new Hyundai KONA. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. And if you do like new car reviews and car content like this, then you know what to do. Go ahead and join the John Banks Review channel. Throughout this video, if you did have any further questions or queries about the new Hyundai KONA, or if you wanted to book yourself a test drive, then you can do that by getting in contact with one of our sales associates via the links down below. Hyundai says that it's listened carefully to the feedback of Mark I KONA owners, who requested extra cabin space and a larger load bay. So the second generation of the car is bigger than the model it replaces. Longer by 175mm at 4,355 and with a 60mm stretch in the wheelbase to 2,660mm. If we begin by taking a look at the outgoing version of the Hyundai KONA, finished here in the top spec Ultimate trim, the design is overall quite simplistic and friendly looking. Around the rear quarter, you've got a piece of black plastic which separates the main body of the car with the top of the roofline. The doors are very simple and there isn't too much in the way of design language. At the bottom, you've also got a plastic bit of trim that runs all the way along the bottom of the doors and over the wheel arches. Also on top of this, you've got a little bit of chrome plastic trim. Door mirrors which are body colour coded, and then moving around to the front you've got a swooping bonnet with the LED daytime running lights and indicators atop of the bonnet. You also have the flush Hyundai badge which is just underneath the bonnet crease. You've then down below in the front bumper got the LED headlamps and you've got some contrasting colours on the front of the bumper. You've got the gloss of the paintwork and then you've got some matte plastic and you've also got some chrome details which surround the main headlamps and then at the bottom of the front bumper. You also have a gloss black front grille which is finished in a very conventional honeycomb design. By contrast, the new 2023 model looks much sharper and has a far more dynamic design language. In fact, it actually looks very similar to the Hyundai Tucson, its slightly bigger brother. It's got those sharp lines and edges all around it, including the Z which is on the doors. They now have much more of an interesting design and that flows through to the whole exterior of the car. You also have much sharper wheel arches compared to the previous generation which were very rounded. They're now actually finished almost in a square design instead of round. You've got the same very dynamic wheels which come in a few different options and are two-tone on this N-Line version. This N-Line is the slightly sportier version of the KONA and that's definitely apparent in its styling here. Around to the front of the car, once again, it's very much different to the previous generation. For one, starting at the top, you've got the Hyundai badge which is now on the bonnet. The bonnet is now divided with this new light bar, which is a daytime running light. If you do go for the entry-level model, this isn't actually a light bar, but it's just around the edges and then a solid bar in the middle. Whereas previously the daytime running lights and the indicators were separated from the main headlamps, they're now all in one simple design, just lower down on the edges of the bumper. There's also a much more interesting design in the way of edges. Just like the rest of the car, you've got a lot of sharp shapes on this new bumper. You also have a piece of gloss black at the bottom here in the grille, which is very similar to that used on the previous gen, but at the top of this you've lost a lot of that and it still remains, but only on the edges. Inside of the existing Hyundai Kona, it has a very similar design language to the exterior, and that's lots of soft edges and rounded designs. Even this touchscreen, which sits atop of the dashboard, also has some curved edges. You have some shortcut buttons along the bottom of this touchscreen, and below it you also have some digital climate control dials, which do have physical dials for controlling the temperature and also your fan speed. Underneath this, you have some piano key style buttons for other climate options. In front of the gear selector, you will find some wireless charging on this top spec model and 2 USB charge ports and a 12-volt charger. Next to the gear selector, you'll find your heated and cooled seat buttons and 2 cup holders in the center console with a little bit of storage, perhaps for your key. You also have some extra storage which is inside the centre armrest. The glove box is a decent size and you can fit quite a few book packs in there. And inside the doors you'll find enough storage for a large bottle of water. The new 2023 Hyundai Kona is now based on the electric architecture, and that means that there's far more interior space, which is a huge plus for existing customers, because stepping up from the old model, you instantly feel that there's a lot more room inside the cabin of this car. By removing the gear selector behind the steering wheel, like in other electric products, it's freed up a lot more room, including a huge amount of storage space down this centre console and some pop-out cup holders, which I love. So when you're using them as cup holders, you can fit up to 2 in there, and then you can tuck them away and you've got a massive amount of storage there. There's still storage inside the armrest as well, but it's now through loading. So once you lift up the armrest, you've got access to that storage, but it does flow through to the rest of the centre storage system. You still have a very similar setup as to the existing car, which includes some wireless charging in a similar position, but you now have your buttons where they were beside the gear selector. You have them beside this drive mode button, which I really like. It's easy to find and easy to click when you're driving. You still have charging, but you now have 2 USB-C charge points. All the USBs have gone now, they're all USB-C, and you still have some existing 12-volt charging as well. As you can see, it's changed a lot from the outgoing model. It's now much sleeker and you've got a lot of those sharp lines like you have on the exterior, and that's included in the climate control dials. It's now angular rather than being rounded. You still have digital climate control dials and you still have tons of buttons, which I know loads of people will be happy to see. However, previously you did have the dials, but you've now got these little touch buttons which you can slide up and down. You don't have the same piano keys underneath the touchscreen as you had before, but you do have them moved slightly further down onto this part of the dashboard. And whereas previously you had the screen which was on top of the dash, you now have an integrated screen. So this sweeps across from your digital screen all the way to your digital instrument cluster. It's now much more modern, more sleek. You have a very similar steering wheel as you'll find in the new electric products like the Ioniq 6 and Ioniq 5, and that means that you don't even have a Hyundai logo. Instead, you just have the 4 dots, which are actually Morse code for H. Very, very simple steering wheel layout. You will also notice there's one extra thing, and that is a little sensor which will test your driver awareness, because this car now has more safety systems than ever before, and this system is going to make sure that you always have your eyes on the road. Rear space in the existing Kona is pretty good. I've got a nice amount of legroom and I've got an okay amount of headroom, although the roof lining does come down a little bit with the sunroof. So if I'm to sit in the middle seat, then headroom becomes quite tight. But legroom is still absolutely fine because there's a very low load tunnel, meaning you're not struggling for foot space with the other passengers. There's a pull-out armrest which has 2 cup holders, and you can also find 1 USB port in the back here as well. There's also nets on the back of the seats to be able to pop items away. But this is where you'll find the biggest amount of change when it comes to space. The rear feels absolutely huge compared to the previous generation. As you can see, the cars are in the exact same driving positions, and I have almost got double the amount of legroom and double the amount of headroom as well. Now, this N-Line version doesn't have the sunroof. You do if you go for the Ultimate, but this one doesn't have it. So I would be interested to see if you still have a touch more headspace, but I would say yes, because that screen has been redesigned. There is a slightly higher loading area, but as you can see, even when I'm sitting in the middle, I've got tons more headroom, and actually leg space is still absolutely fine, because though that tunnel is a little bit higher, it's barely any different than the previous generation. The bench is also flat, so you can easily sit 3 people side by side. You still have a pull-out armrest which has 2 cup holders, and this feels very, very premium. And you still have the nets on the back of the seats for storage. But now, instead of 1 USB, you now have 2 USB-C chargers and a little bit of extra storage space. Around the back, you'll once again see a very different design language. Whereas the previous car had those bubbly kind of soft edges, you've got a much sharper, almost simpler design this time around. Whereas the front has a lot going on, lots of sharp edges and creases, actually the back on these ones was more dynamic before. It's more of a simple flush design. You've got a light bar which runs along the back. You've got the Hyundai badge which is flush with Kona spelt out across the tailgate. On the previous car, you still have the 3D badge from the previous generation, and you've got Kona on the right-hand side rather than across the tailgate. Now here is where another amount of storage space has been hugely increased, and that's inside the boot. So for one, previous generation car had a manual boot. Now if you go for the N-Line, you actually get an electric boot as standard, which is really handy for if you've got your hands full and you're needing to load the boot. Inside these boots, you can instantly see a difference. There's up to 30% more storage space in the new generation of Hyundai Kona. And it's really clever as well, because there's my favourite design feature of the new Kona. Let me show you what it is. This is an incredibly clever storage solution. So if you unhook the parcel shelf, you can remove it like normal, and then once it's removed, you actually have a clever storage system. So if you pop the parcel shelf down behind where it would usually hook in, there is a second set of hooks underneath, and that will store your parcel shelf, which I think is super handy. Plus, on this new generation car, you can also recline the seats, and then that will reduce the gap in between the parcel shelf and your rear seats. There's still an adjustable boot level, and you can still spec the car up to have a spare wheel. Plus, you can even spec it up to have a spare wheel on the electric version, which you couldn't previously do. For now, there are currently 3 powertrains available for the Kona ahead of the Kona electric model. Firstly, there's a 1 litre petrol with 118 brake horsepower, and this can be paired together with either a 6-speed manual transmission or a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic. This can be chosen on any trim level. There's also a 1.6 litre petrol unit, which puts out an impressive 195 brake horsepower. This can only be specified on the N-Line S and Ultimate versions. Like the lesser powered petrol Kona, it can also be had with the same manual or automatic transmissions. The model that I've been driving is the Strong Hybrid, which comes with a 1.6 litre petrol engine and an electric motor, producing 139 brake horsepower and capable in upwards of 60 miles per gallon. This also comes only with the 6-speed automatic gearbox and is available on the Advance, N-Line and N-Line S models. Safety is better than ever. Every Kona model now gets safety systems like downhill brake control, attention warning, collision avoidance assist, lane keep assistance and pedestrian alert. Blind spot assist, rear traffic assist, parking distance warning and safe exit warning are optionally available on higher trim levels. Since its launch in 2018, the Hyundai Kona has maintained its position as a seriously popular family SUV, and we can see why. It's got great exterior styling and fantastic interior quality and space. This new generation of Hyundai Kona is just adding to that and making it more competitive than ever before. If you did have any further questions or queries about the new Hyundai Kona, then you can get in contact with one of our sales associates via the link down below. Thank you so much for watching, and if you did want to see more reviews like this, then you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Until next time, bye!